Hi everyone, it's Lindsay. I'm back today to share with you how to make these felt flowers for your cards and paper crafting projects, and I'm going to be using the Craftin Desert Divas circle dies to make them. So the 3 circles on the left, I used the stitched in circles die set for those, and then the top right is from the inside scallop circles die set, also from Craftin Desert Divas. I'm going to be using these 6 colors of felt. This is the cheap felt, like 25 cents a sheet, and these dies cut it beautifully. I didn't have a problem with it. Now I'm going to be using my Big Kick today, which is the same thing as a Big Shot, and I'm going to use the sandwich I always use for wafer thin dies. Now the only difference I made was I put in a cardstock shim. You can use as many as you need to, or another great thing would be to use your metal adapter plate if you have one, and that's going to help you get a clean cut with this felt. Now to run mine through, I ran it through a couple of times, so back and forth a few times, and then when I pulled it out, it die cut gorgeous, and it didn't flatten it much at all either. So I used that first die with the brown felt. Now I'm going to go with just the plain stitched circle die on this blue felt, and I do want to say the edges of your circles are going to matter in how your flower looks. So using those different edges, like I used some of the scalloped ones, some with the scallops on the inside, and I'm also going to be using the center of that one, which has kind of makes like points on the outside for a really neat look as well. So like you just seen, I put my cardstock shim on top, then I ran it back and forth a few times, then it just die cut beautifully for me, and you can see it's not flattened and it keeps that stitching detail as well, which looks really neat. For this gold color, I cut 2 of those with the smallest circle, and I do want to say that I got my color palette from the Craftin Desert Divas mood board for the month of September. This is for their challenge, and it's a really fun and easy challenge to play along with. I seen this picture on the inspiration board and it inspired me to make these flowers, something that I probably wouldn't have thought of on my own, which is why I love these types of challenges. So there you can see that inside circle die that I use, the scallop circles on the inside, and I'm using both of those die cuts that I got from that. Now to make these flowers is very simple. They all pretty much follow the same procedure. I'm just going to take my scissors and starting at a point on the outside, I'm just going to make a big curl from this circle. So I am just cutting all the way through the circle like you can see here and making a little bit of a corkscrew. You do want to make sure that you keep your cuts pretty uniform and you don't make like the outside cut really thick and then go thinner as you go in. Keep it pretty uniform. Now the best thing I found to glue these was hot glue. It just works the fastest. Just be a little careful. I burned myself on the first one. I learned my lesson pretty quickly. I didn't do it again. But you just want to start right in the center. Now you leave a little circle in the center, and I'm going to pull you in so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. Put a drop of glue in, and then I just squeezed a little bit to create almost a little circle inside my circle. Then I'm just going to start wrapping that corkscrew around the center that I just created, and if you need to put little drops of glue to hold this as you go, that is perfectly fine. I just didn't find that I needed to do this quite yet on my smaller flowers. As they got bigger, I needed to do it more often. I'm just going to continue to wrap that around that center, and then when I get to the end, I'll take my glue gun, add another little drop right to where that end is going to land. I want to tuck this a little bit towards the center at the bottom, and I'll go ahead and place that end right down to hold the entire flower together. And there it goes. That's how easy it is. Now right here is where I burned myself. You can see I jerked my hand away. It was just a little burn, not too bad, but very simple and easy to make these flowers. All right, I'm going to show you again on the larger one now to show you what I mean by gluing as you go along a little bit. So I'm taking my scissors again, starting on the outside and just working my way towards the center, creating that corkscrew kind of shape. I left a little circle right in the center, and I'm going to put a dab of hot glue in there and fold up that center to create another little circle. Now I'm going to hold that for a minute and just let that glue dry, and then I will start to wrap around my little lines that I created around that center. Now, because this is a bigger flower, I'm gonna need to go ahead and place little drops of glue as I go along. You can see it's starting right there to kind of get a little weird on me. You could see the little kind of scallops it's making almost. And I needed to go ahead and pull that back apart and add a little drop of glue. Now I'm going to go ahead and continue to wrap all the way around and just continue to wrap that around until I feel like it's starting to make that shape again. And there it did it again. So I'll go ahead and unwrap it a little bit and add a little bit more glue right there. And then I'll hold that for just a second to let that set up and dry so I know everything's going to stay in place. And then continue to wrap that until I get to the end. And that end I'm going to tuck just a little bit towards the back and towards the center so you can't really see it. And then let that dry. And that is 2 of those. Now those are both of the plain circles. Now I'm going to show you this one with kind of the points on the outside. So again, I just picked a point to start on the outside and started cutting in towards the center in that corkscrew motion. Once I get to the center, I'll make sure to leave a nice little circle to start out with. Put my little drop of glue, fold it up like I've been doing, and create that little circle. And it's almost like a little triangle you could see I did there. I just kind of pinched the ends of it together to create that little circle. Then I'll start wrapping around all of my little edges there and continue to wrap that until I feel I need to put a little bit of glue down. And if you make these, you will feel when you need to do it, you'll kind of feel it starting to come apart in your hands. It sounds confusing from the video, but once you get it in your hands and you're feeling as you're wrapping it around, you'll know when you need to go in and add more glue. Now here's where the edges come into play, and once they get towards the outside there, it just creates this really unique look around the outside of the flower. It's very neat. And also your different edges are going to create different looks. So this one has those points on it, and the scalloped ones are going to look a little bit different. Now I could feel that it started to need a little bit of glue right around there. So I'm just going to put a little bit down, hold that until it's dry. And I picked off a few of my little strands that you get whenever you use a hot glue gun. There's just no way around it. And once you're done with these, you can go back and pick those off. Very simple and easy to do. Then once I get to the end, I'll go ahead and wrap that around towards the back. And there are 3 done. This is a very quick and simple process to do. Now next up, I'm going to do this larger brown one with the scallops on the outside. I'm going to go ahead and start and pick a point on the outside and then just start cutting towards the center like I'm doing here. One thing I will say is whenever you use your scissors on this, you need to make sure that you have a really sharp pair of scissors because you don't want to fray your felt. You want those nice clean cut lines. So I have a really sharp pair of scissors that I use. I know you're not supposed to use your sewing scissors on paper, but I am somebody that is guilty of that. But these stay nice and sharp for me. These are my long blade Fisker scissors. I use them on everything and I don't have a problem with them yet. Once I do, I'll go get a new pair, or you can always get them sharpened. Now I started with my little center on my brown flower here, and then I started wrapping around, and once I felt like I needed to put down a little bit of glue and it was kind of getting away from me, I went ahead and did that. Pinch it and let it dry just for a second, and then I'll go ahead and continue wrapping around. And this is where those scallops start to show on the outside. Now I will say the scallops seem to need a little bit more glue to hold everything together, but I also brought the layers out just a little bit more. I thought it looked very nice that way. So I continued to just kind of bring those out a little bit and add a little bit more glue as I went along. And then once I got to the end, I just put a little glue down and kind of glued that end more towards the back. Now the only one that I did any different to was this outside of the inside scalloped circles die. Now on this one, all I did was I cut just a point in the circle to create a very long line. That's all you need to do. Then with my tweezers, I held on to the end of one of those lines. Now I'm going to start wrapping. I want to make sure I've got the end, and I just started wrapping. I'm a little bit off camera here, but there I seen that I was off camera. So I started with one point in between my scissors to hold it nice and tight. I didn't want to burn myself. Then I put a little bit of glue down to get this wrap going. Then I just started wrapping that really long line of scallops now all around each other to create a very flat on the back flower, but it looks very nice once it's all done with, but right now it looks a little funny. Now, as I went along, I did need to add a little bit more glue to this one to hold it all together. And I just kept wrapping and wrapping and wrapping around the center. And I did keep my tweezers in there to hold everything together. Now, I did keep everything nice and flat, like I said. This will all kind of line up with each other. The scallops will offset one another, but the ends, the bottom of this is going to line up and be nice and flat on the back. So if you wanted to create a more flat flower, this would be the route to go. Here you can see I'm just adding a little bit more glue all the way around to wrap it completely, to hold it all together. And I'm just lining up that back and wrapping around. This one took a little bit longer to do, but it was worth it. Now, once I had this done and I was getting more towards the end, I started adding glue all the way around to where I knew it was going to wrap, just to keep everything nice and secure, because this one wanted to get away from me a little bit and fall apart. So you do need quite a bit more adhesive on this one. Now I'm finally to that end, and I'll go ahead and place a little bit of glue on there. Press that down right towards the back of that, and then I just let that dry. I didn't remove my tweezers or anything. Once it was nice and set up, I removed my tweezers, and there I've got a nice little scallop circle with that flat back ready to be put on the card. Here's a look at all of the flowers I created, and I am going to use all of these on my card for today. So I wanted these flowers to remain the focal point of the card, and really they are pretty large. This isn't a card that could be put through the mail. I didn't mind, I was going to hand deliver this one anyway, but I just want to forewarn you, if you decide to make these, you might want to go with the flatter back ones if you want to put it through the mail. Those larger ones, they don't want to fit in an envelope. So on the back, or what I decided to do was I decided to go ahead and just stamp the wishing you a lifetime of happiness. I assembled that from the Wishful Thoughts stamp set, which is a very large scripty sentiment set from Craftin Desert Divas. And I stamped that right in the top center of an A2 card panel. And I heat embossed that with some Princess Gold embossing powder from Ranger. Now, I don't know what happened with my card panel here. I must have cut it a little short and a little long on the bottom, but I trimmed it up to match my card base. And then I also used the Inside Scalloped Rectangles die set, the largest rectangle in that set, to cut a piece of craft cardstock. And that's going to be my frame. Now, I wanted to put those flowers kind of at the bottom of the frame, but with just one piece of that fun foam that I'm using here, it wasn't enough to pop it up high enough to kind of compete with the flowers. So I doubled up that fun foam, 2 layers of it, and I'm going to put that right on the back of that frame. I'll peel off the backing paper from that and frame out that wishing you a lifetime of happiness sentiment that I created. Now, like I said before, I got all of this inspiration from the mood board over at Craftin Desert Divas on the Facebook page. I will leave that link down in the description box below so you can see all the rules and the mood board for yourself. But I pulled all of this from that mood board itself, the color combination and all of that. Now, also, in the picture of those felt flowers, it also had a few little gold, almost fern looking things sticking out. So I went ahead and pulled out those ferns from the Inside Scallop Circle die set, which matched perfectly to the picture. I cut those from some gold cardstock that I had on hand. And then I also used a few other flowers. I ended up only using the little ones from the Crazy Stitched Frames die set. I die cut those from some purple and cream cardstock, and I'm going to use those as accent flowers just to fill in little white spaces. Now, on the bottom of my frame, I am attaching those larger felt flowers that I created, and the best thing I found to use was hot glue again. My paper tape didn't really want to hold it down, and also the matte medium or glossy accents just didn't want to work for me, so I would highly suggest using the hot glue as well on this. Now here's that flat flower I created, and I'm just putting a little bit of glue right on the back and placing it down next to that larger blue one. And I planned these out ahead of time of where I wanted to put them, so everything came together very simply. Now you can see there are a few white spaces, so what I decided to do was just add a few flowers to fill in those. Now if you put something down and you don't like it, like I did here, I put down that cream flower with the pink center, and I ended up not liking the way it looked once I started putting everything else down in place. So because it's hot glue, I could just peel that right up, and it didn't damage my card at all. Everything holds in place very well with the hot glue, but if you do need to peel it up, you can, which is a very nice feature. I used some more of those cream and purple smaller flowers from the Crazy Stitch frame die set to fill in those white spaces, and then I started putting in those little gold ferns that I created. I did use my multimedia mat to put these in, and they stayed nice and in place with that. I just tucked them in little places where I thought maybe a little leaf would be sticking out, and to kind of frame out the sentiment as well. Now in some places they were just a little bit too long, so in those instances I just used my scissors and cut them down to make them a little bit shorter, and then tuck them right into the spaces where I needed them to be, like I just did with that one there. Now after I had all of my little ferns in place, I went ahead and added a few liquid pearls in the opal color right in the center of two of the largest flowers, the brown and the blue. Now a few other ideas that you could use in the center of your flowers, if you don't want to use liquid pearls, you could use the Nuvo drops, which are in the Craftin Desert Divas shop. You could use their sequins if you wanted to, that would be beautiful, or you could just leave them plain like I did on a few of mine. But that finishes off the video for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'm going to leave you with a few pictures of the finished card. On the left side of your screen, you'll see a few different links you can click on. The top will take you to a video of mine you might enjoy watching next. The bottom left will take you to my blog where you'll find the supply list for this card, and the bottom right will subscribe you to my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and happy crafting!